Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
The Healing Through Love podcast with host Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. In episode 38, Julia Langley speaks about the difference between fear and nervousness and how it keeps us from pursuing our dreams. On the other side, it's still important to have that really strong voice.
Absolutely it is. And it actually comes in baby steps. And it depends on the individual actually, and what that individual is, where they're coming from, what their background is, and just what they have had to deal with. And everyone has their own story. And, we do talk about domestic violence, and that is can be a very serious case. But then you have the people that may not have had that situation, but just have severe anxiety in general at it. It is the number one fear in the world. It's right up there next to spiders, the fear of spiders, if you will. But when you think about this, 15 million people every day suffer from some kind of fear when they're public speaking. 15 million people every single day. That should tell you just how important it is that we learn to do that.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. My next guest is Julia Langley, and we're going to be discussing performing for success and how to end the fear so that you can give a confident, commanding keynote. And even though that, you may not be a public speaker or a paid speaker, you may need to use, speaking with confidence in other settings like family gatherings or a workplace meeting or whatever. So Julia speaks about the difference between fear and nervousness and how it helps us to pursue our dreams. She gives tips on how to be more resilient so that you can use your voice to command a room and communicate confidently. Now, Julia has a very interesting background. She helps speakers and coaches overcome the nervousness that they feel when they have to give a talk or do a presentation or even, act on stage. And she is a featured singer for Cirque du Soleil in Canada, and she's performed on stages in over 20 countries and in all 50 states of the United States. Julia, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure.
I am so happy to be here. Honored to be here, Rose. Thank you for having me. And we're talking about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is, of course, using our voice. It's our superpower. And you talk about speaking, and quite often people think that that's just getting up on a stage, but speaking spills over into all aspects of our lives, as does confidence. So it can be communication, just a simple communication. It can be learning to speak up. A lot of people, when it comes time for them to actually use their voice, they're too scared to even use it at all, even to say, hi, my name is, It could be on the stage. It could be in a sales call. It could be in a number of different things, a job interview. So having said that, using our voice, speaking, communicating, it's all interconnected. And it's such a very important, integral part of our life. And it is a clue or a cue, if you will, to future success, our ability to actually execute proper communication, proper speaking. And that's going to really be a preview to what's coming down the road for us.
Yeah, I know a lot of victim survivors of domestic and family violence don't use their voice because most often they're too frightened to, or they've never learned the key steps to be able to express themselves in a way that they feel valued and heard. So how can they use some of the skills that you teach to be able to use their voice and stand up for themselves, whether they're still in a situation or whether they have come out the other side? So it's still important to have that really strong voice.
Absolutely, it is. And it actually comes in baby steps. And it depends on the individual, actually, and what that individual is, where they're coming from, what their background is, and just what they have had to deal with. And everyone has their own story. And, we do talk about domestic violence, and that is can be a very serious case. But then you have the people that may not have had that situation, but just have severe anxiety in general at it. It is the number one fear in the world. It's right up there next to spiders, the fear of spiders, if you will. But when you think about this, 15 million people every day suffer from some kind of fear when they're public speaking. 15 million people every single day. That should tell you just how important it is that we learn to do that. As far as some tips, it goes back really, Rose, to confidence, really understanding your worthiness. All right. And some of that's where we start to tie it into resilience, your ability to come back from certain situations, and your willingness to step out and make yourself vulnerable and really put yourself out there. So there is a whole lot of internal work that needs to be done, training the brain. A lot of people throw around the word mindset. It's not easy. It's not easy at all trying to get yourself in that shape, but to know that you do have value, you do have worth. And unless you use your voice, you're going to continue to stay in the same place that you have been in the past. You're not going to move beyond that. So there are techniques that I use, that I teach, that really help people with their confidence. And it starts out being in a certain situation and knowing certain things like breathing techniques that you can really incorporate into the moment, which will bring you back to center. It's more of a grounding, and it's very important. The other thing is, I'm going to throw another tip out for you. Visualization is very important. You have to visualize a positive outcome. If you're sitting there creating a story in your head about something that's going to come out and it's going to end up bad, then you're never going to want to use your voice, and you're never going to want to speak out, never going to want to get up on the stage and make yourself vulnerable. You're just not going to do it. So you really have to create that scenario in your head that this is going to end up great, and that I'm going to get the outcome. And what's on the other side of that is something even bigger and greater, and me, a more empowered version, a more confident version of myself.
It's often difficult for people that have anxiety or have been through very traumatic experiences to find that confidence. And as you say, it is baby steps. It just doesn't happen overnight. And that there are certain ways that you can build up your confidence, and speaking and using your voice is one of those things to find your confidence in. Even if you go and talk to yourself in a park, or go and chat to a stranger, which I know when you're anxious and you've been through a traumatic experience is not easy, but getting into a lift and just saying hi builds your confidence. And not only that, but it makes the other person feel valued, and gives them a good start for their day.
But you're so right. And I think that we actually forget that. There's no better feeling in the world when you look at someone and you smile and you say hi, and you can just see all of a sudden they're like, they just were friendly. And it's almost like a surprise on their face, but you can see those moments. So you're helping them and you're helping yourself at the same time. There's this energy that's exchanged. But what happens with that confidence muscle is that it starts to grow. It's like a little seed, right? And you exercise this tiny little, you stick your toe in just a little bit, and you find that it's not so bad. You smile at someone and they smile back, and then the next time you say hi and they say hi back, so you're sticking a little bit more of your foot in every single time. You're building that confidence muscle, and that's what it takes. It's a muscle. You have to exercise it just like anything else. So we go out there and we exercise those muscles and we build up that strength until we get to the point where we start really feeling more comfortable, not just with going out and expressing ourselves, but really with who we are and feeling good about ourselves.
Yeah, and when you build that muscle and then you're confident enough to go and actually speak in public, you won't feel so alone. You won't feel like you're the only person in the world, and the anxious moments and nervousness will not be as bad.
You're absolutely right. And I want to say something that's very important here, because quite often those connections that are coming back to us, we kind of get back what we're putting out in the world. All right. And this is not saying that bad things happen to you and you deserve it. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is that it's directly proportional. Your phone will ring when you're calling other people. All right. People will start coming out to see you and speak to you when you're speaking to them. So you have to make that effort. You have to reach out. You have to make those connections, because that's the reciprocalness. And that is what communication is. If there's just one person, it's not communication. There has to be two sides to the story. There has to be the audience. There has to be the interviewer. There has to be the one person on the other side that you're communicating with. So there's this exchange of energy going back and forth. And the stronger, I was just going to say, the more confident you get with it, they start to recognize that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know as a child, when I met, strange adults, I was always really, really shy. And but when I got to know them, obviously then I'd come out of my shell. And sometimes shyness as a child manifests itself into adult life. Yes. And so, being shy can be difficult to overcome, but there are steps that you can use to overcome that shyness and introvertedness.
Well, that's absolutely right. And believe it or not, I'm a performer, but I am actually an introvert. No, my friends would say I was lying, because they, people think of me as a talker and a social butterfly or whatever. But back in the day, all right, when I was a lot younger, I had severe social anxiety. So I would see someone coming and literally go in the other direction. It was not because I didn't like that person, or I just didn't know what to say. And it was a fear of saying the wrong thing, a fear of being judged, or they just thought I was dumb. I didn't have anything important enough to say that. And so that had carried over into my adulthood. So I can relate to that. And look here, 20 countries, stages all over the world. And I came from that, that severe anxiety that I felt, and sometimes overcompensating. Okay, so I knew I had to say something. So then I would talk too much. So I could go in the opposite direction. Finding that balance. It's not easy to find the balance, but you can find the balance. You're not stuck with that fear all the time. You can learn how to use it for the good of yourself and others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I in social situations, I usually stand back at the wall and just observe people, and then when I get a bit more confident, I'll find the people that are talking a lot, so that I can just stand there and listen, and then maybe I'll have something to say. But it certainly isn't easy if you're a shy or you're introverted, because it's finding that confidence muscle and feeling that that your opinion matters.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, so often I hear people say, I was told not to talk as a child, or I was told to shut up, or, I was told that children were made to be seen and not heard, and you don't think these things get into our psyche, but they really do. They really do get into our psyche, and they make a big difference, the stories that we tell ourselves as we get older. And they're just not true. Even if you are quiet, you still have something to offer the world. There's a uniqueness within you. It's just a matter of having someone that can help you find it, because you might not even recognize. You might think what's weird might be actually something really special that makes you stand out, and you don't even recognize that. And that's part of what I do as a coach, is talk to people about, or not talk, but work with people to help them find that within them that makes them different, that makes them unique, that makes them special, and to bring out that strength that they have with them. And we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So what's the goal here is to bring your strengths out and make your weaknesses better, but use those strengths and share that with the world. And that's really what we do when we perform, when we speak, when we give a keynote. That's what we do.
Absolutely. And I think when you're giving a keynote, or you're giving a work presentation, or something even in the family, a family gathering, and you have been asked to give a speech of some type, it's very important, I think, to recognize that you do have a voice, and that projecting it is important for not only yourself, but it gets I guess other people to recognize your worth and your value.
It will, absolutely. And it's like being the world's best kept secret. Or here's a better example. I know people that talk about being invisible. They feel as though that they are invisible. But it's not everyone else's fault all the time that you're invisible. Sometimes you really are invisible. Like, you're not doing anything to enhance yourself. All right. And you have to take those steps, however small they might be, but you still have to take those steps, right? There is work internally that we have to do to make someone turn around and go, oh, hi. Oh, what's your name? Because people are in their own mind. They're doing their own thing, really and truly. So there has to be that give and take, like I was talking about, that reaching out. And that's a muscle that we have to build. Like, we get better at it the more we do it. But taking the first step, woo, it's very hard sometimes. It's tough for people.
It is quite often difficult to, say something, and then you start to say something, and then maybe someone interrupts you because, you're not projecting your voice out. And that's very important too, is the way you project your voice, rather than using the,
right,
be louder, not yelling or whatever, but project the voice out so that people can actually hear what you're saying.
Well, right. Absolutely. I mean, there's a strength in projection too. So what is your voice saying when you do speak? What are you putting out? You have to ask yourself these questions. You think, is your voice? Are you always asking a question? Are you insecure? I mean, all of these things, and you may not be insecure, but if you're always asking a question at the end of every sentence that you make, people are going to think that you don't know the answer, that you're actually looking for an answer. So there's just little things that we do that we don't even recognize that we do as speakers. And it's important. This is where a coach comes in with people, because a lot of times you can't recognize them within yourself. Like, you're so used to watching yourself, you think, okay. And then a coach watches it and they go, okay, what are you doing with your eyes? What are you doing with your hands? Listen to the tone of your voice. Listen to how you answered that. And a good friend is sometimes great to help you out too. A friend that's kind but honest. So, you need that in your life, particularly when you're stepping out there. Hey, how did that sound? How did I word that? How can I do this better? Especially on stage, or when it really, really counts. You need to win that job interview, or you need, you have a speech and you want to share with others or educate or train.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have done some speaker training, and it's really important. Your body language is also really important too. There's no good you sitting with your arms across your chest or your right. Or your arms folded is no good. You need to keep an open stance when you're speaking so that people think you're confident, even if you don't feel it. And when asking questions, you should go downwards rather than end it with an uptone. That's things that I've learned, and it makes people think that you're confident even if you're shaking in your boots.
Exactly right. And you learn these tricks and you get better, because it's all about having a relationship with that fear, that nervousness, with the nervousness. You have to learn to use it to your advantage. Fear and nerves, they're there for a reason. They're there to keep us out of trouble. But when it gets bad is when that sort of takes over with what we're doing. And I think this is where it comes in. We were talking about the difference between nervousness and fear. We had mentioned this earlier. Nervousness is really a symptom of the fear, all right? But when that fear takes over is when that you start to have a problem, right? So nervousness, we can get rid of those jitters and we can keep moving forwards. But fear, what fear does to us is it spirals with us, and it sometimes sinks us into this place that we can't use it to our benefit, all right? We can't get out of our own way, if you will. We don't even see it as fear. We don't even know it's fear. We're just in this mindset that we have, and we just can't pull ourselves out of it. So that's how fear can manifest itself, and it can sneak up on you before you even know it's there. Nervousness, on the other hand, is going to be more about those butterflies you get, that moment in time where you actually have to control it, learn how to control your nervous system, calm it down, and really use it to your benefit. So there's a couple of things that we're dealing with, and you might have a little bit of both, but you have to be willing to understand the difference and be willing to really dig in, particularly if you do suffer from paralyzing fear. And I know some people, I've worked with some people that literally every single time they had to step on the stage, they would go to the bathroom and hide and not come out. It was not pretty. It was a very stressful moment for me too, because they would it was hysterics in the bathroom for an hour, and this was every single time. And now this person I'm thinking about is getting an award tomorrow night and stands up on the stage and is representing the American Heart Association and the importance of it. And, it can be, she had a desire to overcome it. So it's a commitment that she made, and the desire to get better and to do what it took to really step out and get better.
A lot of people don't realize, though, that fear and excitement have the same vibration.
That's right. They do.
Absolutely. So if you think of it as being excited rather than fearful, then that changes your whole mind process. So instead of saying, oh, I'm afraid to do that, say, I'm really excited. And it actually does work. It takes a bit of training, but yeah, if you turn that around and realize that really, if you change the words that you're using to yourself, that is really helpful too.
You're absolutely right. And that's a really great tip for your listeners, is that really it's how we approach it, our perception of it. And that's what I mean by getting in our own way. Sometimes we tell ourselves a story. We get to choose what the story is. So you're going to tell yourselves you're going to crash and burn up there. You're going to tell yourselves you're so excited and you're really going to let all that energy out and wow your audience. I mean, the whole different story that you're telling yourself. and your reaction is going to be very, very different. It starts up here.
Absolutely. Julia, if you were to give some tips for somebody starting out to use their voice, it's, especially when they've come out of a trying relationship, and they want to be able to use their voice in a more positive way, perhaps to go and get a job, or just be able to talk to people in public, what would you advise?
Well, starting out, I mean, certainly on a speaker's level, there are groups that you can get involved in. And I think that this is a real safe way to get started. Get involved with it. And it doesn't even have to be a speaker's group, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Get into a small group, get into a book club, get into something that you enjoy first. And particularly someone who's coming from trauma or complex trauma in their life, a history of it maybe, and they really, really have something that's getting in their way of using their voice. You need to be in a safe spot, all right? You need to surround yourself with people who that you can trust, right? So you're in a book club with 2 or 3, maybe 5 people, all right? A very small group. Start there. And it can be any kind of group. It doesn't have to be a book club. It can be a church group. It can be, a bicycle group that you go with, but it needs to be that group that you can talk with and start working that muscle, just like what I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Start working the muscle, because you can sit and talk about it all day long until you actually step out of your comfort zone and do it. It's really not going to get any better. You have to take the first step. But you don't want to, I always tell people, like, audition for auditions. You don't want to use new material when it's the most important time of the day, right? Make sure that you're in a safe spot and you start trying things. You start experimenting with it, speaking up, seeing how others react, and building that muscle. That, to me, is the best way to get started, particularly in a safe spot, in a group that will be kind.
Yeah, that's it. That is an absolutely great tip. I think that a lot of people don't know where they can go, but if it's just a small group, go to the library to a reading thing, and and then have a coffee afterwards, as long as you're in a safe spot that you can't be fearful in, then then you can start to use that voice that was given to you for a purpose. I mean, we were all given a voice, and we should be able to express ourselves, and sometimes we just need to learn or relearn how to use that.
Yeah, and if you think about it like this too, there might be somebody out there that's going through the same thing that you went through, that really needs to hear what you have to say. They needs to hear that there is another side, that they can get through this troubled time in their life, or that they can win, or that they can be stronger. There's people that need to hear this. So you might have just exactly the right story for just exactly the right person at the right time. But if you don't share it, then that not only are you missing that opportunity to connect, but that person's missing the information that they need to move forward in their life. So you're doing them a disservice as well.
Yeah, someone told me that I'm actually doing the world a disservice by not sharing my story. So, but again, it's just finding that courage, building that courage muscle to be able to go and share that story. So, one day I will.
We need to hear your story for sure. I mean, it's people are going through things, and that I think the key here is, this is the confidence bit, Rose, that we talk about, is that you need to know that you have worth, and what you say has value to it, and that you can actually help someone else. You might be amazed. What amazes me is that the people that will contact you that you never even knew you were helping, those are the ones that are amazing, because you're touching people's lives with your podcast. Just using you for an example there, you're touching people. You don't know who all you've touched. You may have saved someone's life today and not even know it. So think about that when you're talking and when you're speaking, and speaking up for yourself and finding your own strength. Somebody else might be finding their strength through you. And when you think about it like that, that's you're changing the world.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. Rose, find that courage. Get that courage muscle up and going. Julia, where can people find you if they would like to work with you, or even, find out more about, being able to speak with confidence in public?
Absolutely. Well, I am on all the social media channels. My name, Julia Langley. I'm also on IG, as you see in the picture here, Cirque Singer Jules on Instagram. I have a Linktree profile. If you go to linktree.com and put in my name, you will see a lot of the upcoming things. I have a masterclass that I'm going to be offering on May 9th. And this is going to be about how to use your speaking voice to get those clients, make more money. We're going to be talking about fear a little bit there as well, and overcoming your nervousness when it comes to persuasive speaking. So I urge you to come join in. It's a complimentary masterclass, and you can find that link on my linktree.com. So hopefully you can join in with that. But I always have activities that are going on, and that Linktree is the best way to find out. You can get all my social media channels, as well as finding out all the upcoming activities and things that I am doing.
Good stuff. Yeah, I might check out your masterclass, Julia, and see how we go. Yeah, it's the time difference, though, you see.
I know it's at 7:00 though, Eastern Standard. So I think it's 10 for you. So it might work.
It's good. All right.
Yeah.
Julia, it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you again. I so love speaking with you. And thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared with us. If you were to give some words of wisdom, what might they be?
Well, my words of wisdom is that if you're thinking about really stepping out there and working on your speaking in a more formalized way, working with a coach, or really going to Toastmasters, doing something different, I urge you, do not wait. Don't wait to do it. All right. Because it's hard. Okay. But it's way harder to be in the exact same place where you are now, a year from now. And you look back and you go, I should have done it then. It's just there's just never the perfect time. You have to step out and you have to just do it. In the words of Nike, just do it, because that's how you get better. We can talk about driving the car all day long, how you do it, but until you actually get behind the wheel, it's not going to get good. It's not going to get any better. No. So take the step.
Yeah, well, Julia has some background in, in finding confidence too, because, she suffered a traumatic experience when, she was hit by a car, and she was diagnosed with PTSD. So she's had to learn, how to build that resilience muscle back up from, being such a confident person to, being almost dead, basically. So, Julia has a knowledge of what it takes to build that courage muscle, that confidence muscle back up after, something that's been so horrible. So reach out to Julia. She will, just have a chat with her, and she will lead you in the right direction. Again, Julia, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, Rose. Always a pleasure.
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.